Yo, what's going on, everyone? We are doing a quick little collab video. I'm joined by my good friend Sarth, the man himself, the legend, who's been in the classic scene for as long as anyone. He is actually going to be putting on a huge shoutcasting stream this Thursday for the Race to World First in Ulduar. So today we're just going to do a little bit of prediction video, who we think are the big hitters in the scene, and kind of just give you an idea and a backstory of like what's going on, what to expect, and give you something to just chew on before we get our hands nice and dirty with the content. So, Sarth, how you doing, man? You ready?
Yo, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Rugs. I'm really excited to cover the Racer World First. It's the first time I've done it, and I did Nax Ramus back in OG Nax, but this is the first time my guild isn't really participating in Racer World First. So I'm just really excited to see who pulls off the crazy strategies, break them all down live, and have multiple POVs over on the stream at one time, really just seeing how neck and neck it can be.
Absolutely. It's a spectacle, and to me, the Race to World First in Ulduar is kind of the Super Bowl of everything classic. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and I just can't wait to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I just gotta say I'm pumped. I think this is gonna be so close. This is the hardest raid we've seen ever in Classic, so it could be the craziest. We could see some crazy upsets.
Absolutely. First things first, in case you are unfamiliar with how Ulduar is going to be set up, Ulduar is a very long raid with, I want to say, 14 bosses. And of all those bosses, there are two in particular that are on the menu for the Race to World First and how we're calculating it. As you can see now, I have Warcraft logs, Ulduar PTR update, and just kind of how they track overall progress. At the end of the day, this is a big TLDR. All you need to know is as long as Yogg 0 and Algalon have been defeated, whoever is the first guild to do that will collect all these points from overall and will be the Race to World First victor.
And Steelbreaker, though, that is actually important to notice because you still can do the second hardest version of Iron Assembly, technically, to get the Algalon key, I believe. So
that's true.
We do need Steelbreaker also.
That's true. So yeah, you've got to do the hardest version of Iron Council, and then you are required to do all the keepers on hard mode because that's how you'll complete your Algalon key. And even if that wasn't the case, you would still need to do that just based on our rules that we have set for this race. And of course, Yogg 0 for the world ranking at the end of the day as well.
Yes.
So
they're going to do all of the hardest versions of things, but there's some fights they can skip. It's XT. You don't have to do hard mode XT or Flame Leviathan. You also do not have to do hard mode of General Vesax. The rest of them you have to deal with.
Exactly. Also, Ignis and Razor Scale at the beginning of the instance are fully skippable, and they do not matter for this race whatsoever.
Yeah, and actually, Araya, they could skip that too.
That's so true. That's very true.
I probably actually think a lot of guilds going for Race World First probably will actually skip that and come back and kill those bosses after they've already downed Algalon.
It's going to be really interesting with the Ariaya one because she is kind of in the way. In a lot of cases,
she's super annoying.
She can just be a time loss for your raid if you just kind of get bad RNG with her patrol, and it might be worth just killing her just so that you can get some loot off of her. So it'll be really interesting to see, you know, what the guilds are going to do about Ariaya. I definitely think she's skippable and worth skipping, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, if you get bad RNG, I think that could be worse than however long it takes to down her and getting the loot you could have. Like, it's not a fight they're gonna wipe. The Race World First guild will wipe on, so they should potentially maybe get some extra loot and move forward and use that on Algalon and Yogg.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump into the scene. Where are we at currently? Who are the big hitters? Who's the favorite to win this race? Everyone wants to know who's the favorite. Right now, I have pulled up the progress from Nax Sarth Mali. So everyone wants to know who won the last Race to World First. Who was it? Well,
it was Beef Bar and Progress. It was like it was an interesting one. I'll let you explain it.
It was basically like a tie. And it was really interesting, to be completely honest, how it all went down. Beef Bar technically has the win by 1 second, on Warcraft blogs, and I do believe Beef Bar would by all means consider themselves the world first winners. Progress did the interesting strat where they did the mind control. Were they mind controlling or just dragging the Death Knight trash bag?
They were dragging a Death Knight. Like, there's a mob inside of Naxxramas that it will throw a kind of an unholy frenzy buff on any of its friends around them, but those people take 1% damage per second while they have that buff, so they do like 30% more damage. So they dragged one of those mobs to every boss pretty much and have like such faster kills of every boss. They're insane. Like, Patchwork was taking 100,000 damage a second or something like that because of this. It was a very, or maybe it was like 300,000, something crazy. So it was an amazing strategy. Progress, I think, is generally the guild that comes up with the most innovative strategies on Race to World First. They've been phenomenal every single tier. And Beef Bar is a more of like a private server guild that just goes in and just like clobbers everything. They don't skip anything. Where Progress is trying to skip every single trash pack, Beef Bar's like pull it all at once, kill it all at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been the scariest thing about Progress going into this next race in Ulduar, is they are a strong contender for the world first, and no one knows what Progress is going to do, because at this point, we've seen Progress pull out so much crazy shit that we know they're going to do something. They're going to do something that's going to blow our minds, or think, no one's doing that strategy, or no one thought of that skip, or no one thought to do X, Y, and Z. And I just can't wait to see what it is that they do, because they are for sure the most innovative of any guild in the scene right now.
Yeah, mainly in progression. For speedruns, not as much, but for progression, I don't think I've ever seen a guild as often come up with as many strategies as Progress. There are some crazy ones that we've seen before, but Progress will find a way. If there is a way to skip all of the trash and just kill the boss, that's what Progress will do. Like, they're notorious for that. And so like we were saying with Araya, I would anticipate if they have a bad patrol, they'll like send a hunter pet with MD around like the other way so that they deal with it or something. They're very good at dealing with that. They always plan it out, and that's why they've been kind of a powerhouse, the most consistent guild most likely in progression raids so far in any sort of Race to World First and Classic.
They dominated the Burning Crusade scene, didn't they? They got every single
and Classic.
And Classic, yeah.
Yeah.
They've kind of been, for lack of better words, they've just dominated the scene, absolutely dominated it.
Until it wasn't until like later on in TBC where we saw some guilds beating them. In Sunwell, when we have a harder raid, which is actually indicative of what we have right now, we have an actual harder raid where guilds can wipe. Progress had some deaths on their raid first for Sunwell Plateau, and they lost out to Old School, which is one of the Chinese guilds, and Avatar. And I think Old School is one of the ones where we right now don't know what they're gonna do. Old School and Noobs are the two like main Chinese guilds that are very, very good and very competitive, but Blizzard is actually ending their deal with NetEase, the Chinese company that hosts World of Warcraft over in China. So they all had to re-roll on Taiwanese servers. So we don't know if they'll have the gear to compete or trying to compete for the Race World First here in Ulduar.
Interesting. I did not realize that they were re-rolling Taiwanese servers.
That's why we haven't seen Noobs so much in the speedrunning in this phase.
I feel like that's going to make a major difference on their race here. It would be big copium to think that they could just quickly turn it around that fast. I mean, I'm not saying anything against their capabilities as players, because they are extremely capable, but the loot just doesn't come around that fast. There's no way. I think they would definitely take a couple notches down in my book.
I wouldn't put it past them in all actuality. It's like a thing in China, like kind of culturally, they might have bought fully bissed out characters. I wouldn't put it past them, but like literally that's a thing. It's a huge thing in China where you can even like rent out characters. So some guilds at the end of the speedrunning phase would rent out full raid teams if they were losing the speedruns and keep going and keep trying if they failed. So it is a thing. So we'll see. I think you can't ever discredit the Chinese guilds because we are getting a global release here. Everyone's being able to go at the same time, but their biggest downfall is it releases at like 4 a.m. or something over in China. It's midnight for EU, and it's really nice for NA. It's like 3 p.m. or 2 p.m.
Yeah.
But for EU, it's midnight, and in China, it's like very, very early. So a lot of guilds, like Noobs, has traditionally not participated in races to World First.
Sure. Who would you say are the top 3 EU guilds in this race?
Oh, that's a good question. In this race, Beef Bar, obviously.
Hmm?
Oh, yeah, actually, that was easy. Progress and Beef Bar, I think, are the 2 kind of main guilds that most people are going to be watching out for to see how they do things. But there's a few other EU guilds that do really well. Statement is, I think, mostly a German guild, and they're always phenomenal.
They've always showed up.
Newman actually puts up very good times as well, although I'm not sure how much practice they had this time. Tribe, another guild that does really good always, like consistently, another very, very solid guild. So all of those guilds could be very good. I think those are the general ones that have consistently performed in the past, but we might see some things come out of guilds like Maximum Effort, which is run by Roguish, or raid led by this guy Roguish, who's one of the best players that's ever played this game. He's phenomenally good at the game and a really good raid leader, so they've put up some really good things. Exodus, the Russian guild, I'm not exactly sure what they've been up to lately, because I feel like so much drama within their country has really made things harder, but they might come back to Gigapump. What about you? What do you think?
I definitely feel like the top 3 kind of powerhouses of EU are for sure going to be Progress and Beef Bar, and I think the third kind of has to be Noda, just because Noda is so insanely dominant when it comes to speedrunning. Surely they're going to put their best foot forward when it comes to the Race to World First. I can't not consider them. To me, I have a bit of a dark horse in this race. And maybe they aren't such a dark horse because it's not like they've been hiding in the shadows or anything. But Sunked. They have the number 4 fastest Naxxramas for a speed run, and they were 9th in the world for Naxxarth Mali Progress when Phase 1 came out. And these guys are a private server guild that dominated the Wrath private server scene across multiple servers. They were just head and shoulders above the rest. They went and played Classic TBC and just kind of started their roots there and grew. And now they're at this point where they have adapted to the culture of Classic and what it's like to play on a Classic server, because it is very different. And I think these guys are gonna pull out all the stops, and they're gonna be the ones to look out for. They could shock the world and pull out a World First from a guild that no one's ever really heard of.
Yeah, that would actually be really exciting. I think they've been putting up extremely competitive speedrunning times lately, and kind of came sort of from left field for me. They had some good times in a few of the races before, but as you're saying, they were kind of getting their footing. So have really stepped things up. Also Luna, which I didn't mention, but you did actually say Noda, but my guild, we actually don't ever participate in Race World First. Noda has traditionally never participated in Race World First, and that's why I will actually be able to cover the race. Our first run is Saturday morning at like 5 a.m. for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so disappointing. I know, like, if Noda would try, they would be right up there in contention, surely.
Yes, I would say with the current roster of none of the above, yes, he's absolutely. And the raid leadership coming over from Echo on retail not down to, but over to Classic with Phil Westside. The guild is honed in on just being phenomenally fast. Just got a new world record in speedruns today that cut off almost 2 whole minutes. So we're sitting near 3 minutes faster than almost exactly 3 minutes faster than anyone, right? It's 2 minutes faster. It is. The guild is honed in, but we won't participate in Race World First. We've got like I don't know, like 20 10-mans planned and 25 mans this week.
That's disappointing. I think whatever Noda puts their mind to, they have a really good chance of just absolutely dominating at, which they've clearly proven time and again with speedrunning, especially in Phase 1. Absolutely unbeatable in Phase 1. Miles ahead of everyone. Extremely dominant, to say the least. Well, if you guys are looking at, what are some of the big players to look out for in this race, if you want to watch any POVs outside of the Shoutcast by Sarth, some couple players in progress that I know would be fun to watch are our boys J-Roo and Anfall, both enhanced shaman players for progress. I don't know if both of them will be in the roster for Ulduar, because progress, just like a lot of these guilds, are extremely hush-hush and everything is behind closed doors. We have no idea what they're doing in terms of strategies with raid comp and who's actually in and who's out. Those are two guys to look out for. And as well as in Sunked, my boys, I definitely would recommend checking out Duality if you're into watching a rogue POV, or Badass Dude if you're into watching a mage POV.
I actually, it's funny because I'm doing the coverage of the race, but I need to check in on everyone who's going to be streaming everyone's POV. There's actually a guild I really want to mention, two kind of, that I want to mention that I think have a very solid chance of doing extremely well. One is Avatar, and the other one is the NA guild Welcome. I just think they have done so well on every race rule first since they started taking it seriously, and they have a lot of just gamers. They're really good. Also, your guild Fusion, are you guys going for actual race to world first?
Not really, unfortunately, and I don't know if I'm leaking something that I shouldn't, but we have two rosters going, and one of them is focused on Yogg Zero, the other one is focused on Algalon, and I'm on the team that's going for Algalon, and we are almost 100% not going to go for Yogg Zero, which basically takes us out of this race. You can take a look for us to see how we do and how we end up in terms of who's the first guild to kill Algalon in the world. I don't know how we'll do there, but maybe we'll do all right. But I don't think Fusion will end up in the top 10 for world rankings this go around.
Maybe get the first kills of both of them though, and be like, let's put that together. And technically, we killed them both first.
I mean, we just want our titles. We just want the titles. I want Celestial Defender. The other guys want Death's Demise. If we get that, we're gonna be happy.
I love it. Yeah, I think there's going to be a huge list, and I'm going to compile it tonight and tomorrow of the streamers in every raid that should be racing to world first.
Yeah. There's also one more guild that we should mention, and I might not know how to pull them up, but Insanity, the guild that they were the first NA guild to kill Algalon on the PTR. They're from Sky Fury. They are very, very capable, to say the least. Being the first NA guild to kill Algalon on the PTR is a pretty impressive accomplishment. And I think a lot of these guilds who chose to play on a server like Sky Fury, which was fresh, kind of removes them from the Phase 1 race to world first, just because they were kind of set back in time. So a guild like Insanity could have been easily forgotten about. These guys are very, very capable, led by a good group of dudes, and they have a ton of private server experience. This is definitely a group to look out for.
Yeah, they could very easily actually take it. I think, did any even EU guild have Algalon dead on the PTR yet by the time they got it? I think it was just China that had it.
Yeah, it was just noobs in old school, and then it was Insanity, I think.
Yeah, so they understand the raid really well. They understand the raid really well. So if they put in the time, they can actually take it. Obviously, if we didn't have PTR, they probably would have been able to easily take it. But the interesting thing is that I don't know is how much time they put into specifically race to world first kind of tactics, and that's where Beefbar and Progress really excel. Is they're not streaming their full weekends of practice every day, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Which really does make a difference, and that's why there is this kind of stigma around race to world first, even though it kind of happened 12 or 15 years ago, where these guilds that are going in there have practiced their runs. They know what they're doing. Maybe it wasn't even on a Blizzard realm, so it's not a perfect one-to-one, but they've practiced. They have an idea of what every boss mechanic is, what every assignment is. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. And I think what you just mentioned is actually easily forgotten about by the vast majority of people, because a guild like Sunk, who I previously put a lot of my chips on, this guild is very, very, very dominant. I think one thing that held them back, not to like shoot any shots, but I think one thing that held them back in the Race the World First for Phase 1 was that they didn't prepare like the rest of these guilds. Nax is so easy. I think that they just thought, oh, whatever, we'll just log in and blow through it. But really, you gotta get in there and you gotta work on the trash skips. You gotta work on moving cohesively as 25 people and absolutely knocking out the crazy, crazy, crazy min-max things down to the absolute last trash pull. That kind of precision and overwork is only gonna be found in the guilds who are putting in all those hours, and it pays off on race day. It really does.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's gonna be extremely excited to see. Our last few phases have all come down to like seconds or minutes. Like they've all come down to like the last boss. There hasn't been a blowout in a while, so I think that's going to be similar here. It's going to come down to Algalon. Maybe a guild will get Yogg 0 down first, and then it's going to come down to Algalon, or like the win could be decided easily on who wiped and who didn't. If you just end up wiping on a boss, that's it, you know?
Yeah, I think Ulduar actually, for the first time ever, possibly presents an opportunity where the guild who gets the world first of both Yogg 0 and Algalon potentially could wipe once and still get it. And I foresee this wipe happening on something like Yogg 0 or Algalon because those fights are so hard. But at that point, there won't be many guilds that far ahead on Yogg 0 and on Algalon, and those bosses can just wipe you, and it's okay. I think it's still possible to get a world first at that point, but it's definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, I think those encounters, I don't know if they will. I don't expect them to. I think the biggest kind of unknown is potentially if they had like the worst possible RNG on Hodir. I think that could be like the scariest thing, is like, oh, wipe it up, let's go again. It'd be like a quick wipe and go again, but still, I think that could be, I think they would have practiced. They're going to be practiced. They're going to be so practiced. These guilds are going to be, they've done all of these kills like 20 plus times probably, the guilds that get the actual win.
Of course. And nope, they shouldn't wipe. But if they do, it'll be interesting to see how their composure is kept because of how long Ulduar lasts, and because you actually still have a chance at first if you wipe once, potentially. Keeping your composure, not tilting, not getting too nervous in those moments is actually going to be very interesting to watch, because, and I'm sure you know this just from your speedrunning experience, when the cameras are on and everyone's watching, it gets a little spooky, it gets a little tense. Everyone's a little nervous and anxious, nobody wants to mess up, and people can get in their heads a little bit. So it'll be really interesting to see if anyone wipes, how they then bounce back from something like that.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be the morale and the tenacity throughout this raid. It's a long raid. It could be done quickly, but it's a longer raid, and I think it's a lot more of a mental strain than what we've dealt with so far in Classic. Is going to really showcase here what guilds can get it done quickly.
Okay, so before we move on from all these guilds, I have one question for you, Sarth. You have to pick one. Who's the Vegas favorite? Who do you have winning this race?
The Vegas favorite? The Vegas favorites are always Progress or Beef Bar, right? The Vegas favorite is probably Progress, if you're going off of like history, but they're very close. That's if you had to hedge your bets, if you're betting on this, it's one of those two is who you would go for. They're probably at a very similar odds right now. Yeah, they are the two guilds that focus a lot of their energy on Race World First. Beef Bar doesn't really participate in any of the speedrunning during the phase. They're not worried about that. All of their attention is on Race World First. I think they're the only guild in Classic that's like a paid guild, like a job, you know?
Yeah.
So they're committed. They're going all in for this. So we'll have to see. What about you? Who do you think?
You know, between the two, it is really, really, really tough to say, but I'm going to have to give the edge to Beef Bar. And the reason is they're Horde. And I know, okay, it's not that big of a deal. No, it kind of is. It kind of is. That could be the difference of actually getting Hodier hard mode. That could be the difference of hitting the Iron Council hard mode check. That could be the difference of getting that last 0.5% on Yogg 0. It's just a little bit more juice. I think Beef Bar is going to pull it out. I think Progress is going to be biting at their heels the whole time. And I do think Progress is going to do something absolutely nuts that we've never seen before. But I think Beef Bar is going to still win it. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what we get and how close the race is and how crazy some people's strategies are.
All right, I am going to pull up this raid comp tool for us real quick.
Okay.
Let me see if I can share my screen with you. And let's talk about what we might be seeing in terms of a raid comp for this race. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. I'm just going to go ahead and start filling out stuff. I think we go Protection Paladin. I don't think anyone in their right minds would go anything different. I think there is consideration for Prot Warrior, and I definitely know that a couple guilds were messing around with Prot Warrior to see how it felt on PTR. Those guilds like Noda definitely messed around with Prot Warrior. I know y'all aren't in the race, but it's definitely interesting to see how it went. And didn't y'all confirm like it just was not worth it on Algalon?
No, we were able to do everything. So I think Prot Warrior is a valid choice. Although I think Protection Paladin just makes it safer, and I think for race here it might be better to opt for safety.
Yeah, I think so too. I think in most cases, people will be running Feral as the off tank here.
Agreed. For race, for sure. I think that gives you the Feral the buff. I did not check today because I'm not on the NA servers, but I believe that we should have Commanding Shout now not stacking with Imp buff.
It does not stack, yeah.
Okay, so you might not get you might not have a warrior slot in these races.
Correct. Healers. We got our tanks out of the way. Healers. I think it's quite obvious we go double Holy Paladin.
Yep.
I think you're gonna have a Disc Priest.
Yep.
And then it gets really weird here because it's actually super flexible, because in a lot of cases you can 4 heal fights. You kind of need to two heal or solo heal Hodier. Yeah. So the last couple are very interesting. I think what I've been seeing the most, especially for Algalon, which I think is important to at least consider, is people are running triple Holy Paladin and Resto Shaman for Algalon. But I do think for the race, you might see something like a Resto Druid pop up, like during the farm for Keepers, and then people switch around for Algalon maybe, or you might even see a Shadow Priest who's speccing into Holy. There's a lot of flexibility with how this healer comp actually works out. How are you foreseeing it happening?
Yeah, I think we definitely, like, the first 3 are set, right? Double Holy Paladin and a Disc Priest. The Resto Druid helps Algalon significantly, and you can have him specced into whatever else you want during 90% of the actual raid. The Resto Druid also sees a ton of utility, actually, in this raid, and then you can have him spec into Boomkin for a lot of the raid. So it's really nice, actually. That can be the comp, and you might even have, like, another person that could flex if you need to for Alg. So I think it's a safe composition. I'm not particularly the pro at healers, so the first 3 are like what you really want, and the Resto Shaman just sees so much utility on Algalon that I think a Resto Druid is an easy flex because of how much DPS they can output as a Boomkin.
Right. I think it's so interesting to know that Yogg 0 comps are actually very different than Algalon comps, which are also very different from Keeper comps and just all the other comps for every other boss in this raid. I know that Freya is definitely easily 5 healable, but a lot of guilds will maybe opt to 6 heal. I know that Firefighter is 5 healable, but since they buffed the hand pulse damage, some guilds might opt to 6, hell, maybe even 7 heal on the race day for Firefighter. I think, there's no telling what's going to happen. I think Thorum is 4 healable. We already know Iron Council's 4 healable, and then Hodier's solo healable. So it gets crazy to try to track it all. I think we stick with the double Holy Paladin, Disc Priest, and then we have to go into this knowing that these 2 other spots are insanely flex. Major flex. And that'll be interesting to see what the guilds actually end up doing for those pulls. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're all like it's variable to whatever. I think that almost comes down to player versus class for the guilds, or like what their strategies are. It is the Holy Paladins and Disc Priests are like essentials.
Yeah.
And the other ones like need to be able to pump DPS on other fights.
Okay, what about melee DPS? What are you expecting?
I expect the Alliance guilds to run 2 Frost DKs and 1 Unholy DK. And I expect the Horde guilds to run 2 Unholy DKs and 1 Frost DK. As well as 2 to 3 rogues. 2 rogues?
Yeah. I think 2 rogues. I would go with 2 rogues. And I think your DK prediction is actually pretty solid. It's definitely like 1 Frost, 1 Unholy, and then 1 Flex. Yeah. Could be whatever for either guild.
Yeah, the Flex is like kiting ads on Freya and on Mimron, you know?
Right. You got 1 Assassination, you got 1 Combat, because I think you and I both agree there's not going to be any Warriors in this roster.
Yes, probably not. I really don't. It would literally only be there for Commanding Shout. Like, technically Sunder is useful, but you have the Combat, right? It would be there for Commanding Shout, and since it's not stacking anymore with an Imp, it's potentially not worth it.
Right. We for sure see an Enhance.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the question becomes, these last 2 spots are really interesting because at this point you could potentially be done with melee. You could.
Yeah, you definitely could. Like here you could, I mean, does it count as a hunter, or does that count as range, right? So it's physical DPS. Like, because hunters are performing really well in the raid, obviously.
Right.
So then you can, in hunters, I guess, yeah, it really depends on what we see. I think we're all going to see at least 1 hunter in every raid.
Yeah. I think 1 hunter's cozy. I'd expect to see 1 hunter. I think we will see a couple rosters running double hunter. I don't think that's grief by any means, and I think it's really nice quality of life for the MDs on a race setting.
Yes.
I think more often than not it'll probably just be 1 hunter. And just, we already mentioned the warrior thing, but Rets, there's a chance we see a Ret Paladin, and here's my cope for Ret, is that someone needs to bring the 3% damage buff, and your mages don't necessarily want to play Arcane on a fight like Hodier, so that 3% has to come from somewhere, and usually that's going to be like an off-spec Holy Paladin maybe, or just having a Ret, and that Ret also does bring an extra DSAC, which is very, very useful for pretty much every fight in Ulduar, especially Algalon. So there's potential that we see a Ret, but I think it's unlikely, and I think more often than not we won't see any. I think we might,
because of Algalon. I think it can be useful, and they'd have like a second Ret spec that they can go and DSAC on Algalon. I think we might. I see the merit of it, and it's gonna come down to class or the guilds themselves.
Yeah,
like you were saying, because we might see like 1 Arcane, 1 Frost Firebolt Mage, right? It'll just come down to the guilds are going to be close on deciding here.
Yeah. Now we have seen a lot of double enhance in the speedrun setting in phase 1, but correct me if I'm wrong, has the double lust been fixed?
I have not been able to test, but it should be fixed, so I don't think we're going to see double lust moving into the race to world first.
Okay, knowing that there's not double lust, I doubt that there's going to be a double enhance, so I almost think to round out the group 2, you probably would just have another DK, to be completely honest.
Not a bad choice, or another rogue, yeah.
Or another rogue, yeah.
Very similar situation.
Definitely absolutely. A flex spot here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to caster groups. I think everyone's going to have 1 Boomy.
Absolutely.
I think everyone's going to have 1 Shadow. Do you think there's going to be a Shadow?
Definitely a Shadow, I think. Well, you need it for later, obviously.
Oh, right. You definitely need it for Algalon. I think most groups will probably run 1 Mage. I don't think there will be many that bring 2, but I do think there is a potential for there to be 2.
I agree. I don't think the race guilds bring 2, but I think the potentials is there to be a very safe, like a normal guild would probably bring 2.
Absolutely. And then at this point, it's just Warlocks
It's just fucking what? It's literally just warlocks.
Yeah.
Let's just have some more warlocks. Warlocks are so strong in this raid.
Yeah.
Is there any buffs we're missing? Because they are just so powerful in this raid. It is crazy, and they get such good gear. It is the Giga Chad class of this patch.
Yeah. The way that we see Unholy DKs in phase 1 is kind of a flip. Now I think we'll start seeing not quite as many. It's not going to be, 10, but we're going to see quite a bit of Affliction locks in phase 2. I think there is a case to be made for some of these Affliction locks to be demo, because demo is so competitive, especially on overall. So demo might be interchangeable between a couple of these Affliction locks, depending on what these guilds have in mind for what they want to do. And we need to keep in mind that one of these Affliction locks will be running the Imp, improved Imp spec, or just playing Destro.
For Algalon, and or even the whole time. Yeah,
right, because you want the you don't need it, but it's really nice quality of life having that Shadow Fury on Freya. A lot of guilds have found that that's just major quality of life there. So if you want that, oftentimes it might just be nice to just not have to deal with respecking, and you could potentially just have this person play Destro the entire time.
Destro's also completely competitive now. What a solid class warlocks are. They absolutely do have all 3 specs are really good, and Destro can pump, especially on some fights. It's insane. So yeah, we absolutely could see it. I think, yes, the most stacked class we're going to see in the race is absolutely going to be warlocks, now that we probably weren't even going to see Unholies stacked as nearly that much anyways in race, because of the way the fights are in Ulduar. But warlocks are going to be sitting pretty juicy.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and predict what these fills would be if we are in a situation where this is our roster. What are these last 2? I'm going to go ahead, and this is kind of wild, but I think maybe a potential Ret who's off-spec Holy for Algalon, and maybe a potential Enhance Resto or Ellie Resto.
Okay.
Or it just becomes a point where all of these guilds are actually just flexing between a bench. And maybe it's not necessarily a bench, but it could just be like someone logs out and logs into another character, and we just have like this roster of extra players at our disposal, meaning we can run even more Affliction Warlocks, or another Boomy, for example, and have a roster similar to this.
Yeah, so interestingly for that too is, if people are wondering, there is a maximum number of how many people you could bring to the raid for progression, but it's almost doubled the entire raid size. It's maximum of 49 characters allowed per raid group, which is kind of ridiculous. You quite literally can make any swap you need per fight. So we might see that. It's something we didn't see so much in most of the other races world first, but we did see things like guilds actually queuing up for things like war games, or switching out their shamans for less to have it up for every fight. So like we might see things like that with like Unholy DKs swapping to have Army of the Dead at every fight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Absolutely. It's so interesting because, let's quick note the bosses that swaps might be happening on. And the ones that come to mind are potentially Iron Council, but I think the Iron Council one is pretty much straight up doable. Potentially Hodier, depending on what your comp actually is in that moment of snapshot that you will get to Hodier. Maybe you already have the team that you need and you can knock it out, but that's definitely a boss where players are going to be asked to swap in most situations. We'll see what happens in the World First race, because again, anytime that we do a swap, it is a loss in time. You have to zone out and summon someone in. That takes time, and nobody wants to waste time on a race day. And then the last 2 would, again, it's just Yogg and Algalon, because those comps are so different.
I think you aim for a comp that can get to Yogg, or if you have to, a comp that clears Hodier, and then on your way to Yogg, you do a swap really fast, because it's a long route to General Best X, right? So that wouldn't really cost you time. But after, it's Yogg and Algalon is where we probably will see, if guilds do swaps, or if guilds do swaps, that's where we'll probably see most of the changes.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sarth, what would you say are the scariest bosses in this race?
I think it's Hodir. I'm just gonna go back and say I think Hodir has a lot of RNG. Yogg Zero can be very intimidating. I'm anticipating they're pretty honed in on how to deal with Yogg Zero, but Hodir, if you have like the worst luck, it's purely just like if you have the worst luck. A lot of it you can be overcompensated for already, and you should have like a good little padding room. But if you have the worst luck, it can be sketchy.
Definitely.
What do you think?
I think Hodier's a nail biter because it's the weirdest situation where we could be in a situation where you're watching this race and someone is in the lead and maybe they say go for the kill on Hodier, and then something happens, something gets messed up, because shit happens on race day. We've seen it countless times. You've been there in Salad Bakers. Sometimes it's like a big day and shit just goes wrong. Like something could happen.
Absolutely.
And you get a kill time that doesn't hit Hodier, it's over. The race is done at that point. You cannot win. It's over.
If you literally kill him 1 second late and his icicle has broken the chest or whatever, like it's over. Like you literally can't do it. So that's going to be a tight call. Guilds might be like, wait, we have to wait. We have to stop. You know, and what if dots are still on the boss? And like, how if he goes down? It's going to be that's going to be a nail biter for sure.
Yeah. I think another nail biter is definitely Iron Council, although I think for the spectatorship, everyone should be easily one-shotting it. It's just once Iron Council gets to phase 3 and all of these guilds are moving past Iron Council, I mean, I think the door just kind of opens up. You kill Kolagarn, and then it's like, what are we doing now? Anything could happen. These guilds could go straight to Hodir. They could go to Thorum. Who knows what's going to happen? Are they going to skip Cat Lady? And that's when the race gets really exciting. So the first...
That's when things spice up.
Yeah, it gets real spicy after just the first 10 minutes or so. It'll get real interesting. And then I think, weirdly enough, and this is kind of a weird take, but I think Vezax is a fight that you definitely want to be careful on. And I'm curious to see what happens there, because I don't think any of these guilds, because they're all so insanely capable, will have any struggles with the keepers. I even think Hodir is going to be a pushover for all these guilds, even though there is a situation where maybe something happens. I think
it's
Vezax...
either over so fast. It's either over instantly or you missed it, right? Like it's either 2 minutes or Yeah.
But Vezax, if one person messes up and over aggroes or does something wrong, that's a wipe, and that's a massive wipe, because that run back is so long that I think a Vezax mistake would be detrimental to a run. A Yogg Zero wipe, you can at least teleport right back, and you can maybe foresee the wipe happening kind of early on, but a Vezax wipe might be a little long and might be late in the fight. That could be
super
horrible.
Yeah. That's like Algalon and Vezax are the fights where the fight is super, super long. And if you wipe there, you need like wipe protection, right? Because it takes you a while to get back there. And you need to be ready to get back up and start the fight again as fast as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
Which might end up being someone's savior.
And I'm going to be honest, what's really interesting about watching the PTR kills of Algalon, even my own kills of PTR Algalon, it looks so much easier than it actually is. Especially when you don't hear the raid comms during it, because oftentimes these raid comms are muted or there's music playing over them, and you wouldn't believe how tense Algalon is just from watching it. So that one's going to be fascinating to be a spectator of, and especially phase 3 of Yogg Zero as well. That one is very tense for guilds. So really looking forward to just how that plays out. Get your popcorn ready, because phase 3 of Yogg and just all of Algalon is going to be insane.
Yeah, I'm extremely hyped for this, and I'm extremely hyped to actually be casting it live as it's going down to see where the guilds either get the kill or wipe, and it all restarts. It's gonna be so close, it's so tight, and people are gonna be right on your back. Just go for it, or do you just decide to wipe fast so you can get back in there and go again, you know?
Exactly.
It's gonna be insane.
Okay, so I guess with that, speaking of Sarth, where can we watch this stream? Where is it happening? When is it happening? Tell us everything.
Yes, over on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Sarth. Right now, it's looking like it's gonna be me and Solve Dali, so that'll be really fun. And it is gonna be on Thursday at 2 p.m. PST. I'll be streaming already. That is 5 p.m. Eastern, which is midnight CET, and I don't remember what it is for China. So that is when the global launch is all at once for everybody, and every guild will get in there right at one time.
That's great. I will leave a link to your Twitch in the description below. In case you guys have never heard of Sarth, where have you been all your life? Have you been living under a rock? Sarth is an icon, and is going to have a wonderful stream this Thursday. It's gonna be big, guys. I said it earlier. It is the Super Bowl. This is it.
Yes.
We won't have a night like this until ICC comes out, and this is a big one, boys. So strap in, get ready, get your popcorn. It's gonna be a banger. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Best of luck out there.
Yeah. Thank you, Regs. You too.